Hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Can We Talk? Usually we spend a lot of time talking to the doctors who guide us on our journey, but today we're going to go behind the scenes to the IVF lab to talk with Lynn from Gen Prime Fertility on what really happens to our eggs and embryos and why sometimes things don't go as we expect. So let me invite Lynn in and we can start today's chat. Hi Lynn.
Hello, hi.
Hi. So thank you, Lynn, for joining us today and for obviously going through all our questions with us. So before we start, maybe we could get an introduction from you and then we go from there.
Yeah. So, hi, I'm Lynn. I'm the chief embryologist with Gem Prime, Singapore. So basically, I have been in this field for close to about 14, 15 years already. So I've been an embryologist for 15 years. So I think one of the questions that most patients actually ask is like, how do we, come into this field?
Yes. I was gonna ask that.
Yeah.
You weren't gonna ask
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically I actually, joined by chance. So it's like a pure accident. So I came from a background, I studied, biology, life science, medical science. So I'm, very interested in biology when I was in secondary school, which is like really early. So I know that I want to work in the laboratory. So, but there is like so many things that we can do in the
Yes.
lab. But by chance, I actually happened to, start working in an IVF lab. And that is when, things kickstart. And I really enjoy it, like the whole journey so far. Yeah.
Nice. And then 14, 15 years later, you are still obviously in this field.
Yes. Yes,
I
that's right.
honestly, I honestly think it's very interesting. So I've actually told my son that, I think you should be an embryologist because I think it's really, and he likes science and everything as well. But yeah,
Yeah, we actually do have like, even my colleagues
yeah.
or even patients coming to us, like, how do you be an embryologist? Yeah, so we actually, do share with them that you need to, obviously have a background in science, in
Yes.
life science.
Yeah.
And of course, you need to have that passion, I would say. So
Yeah.
if you think that's a calling, then go for it. Yeah.
You never know. That's why you never know.
Yes.
So today's topic is obviously inside the
Mm,
IVF lab. As I said just now, we often talk to the doctors, but we don't
mm,
really get a chance to speak to the embryologists, behind the
yeah.
scenes and everything. So maybe we could start off by, telling us on a day-to-day basis, what is your day in the lab like from the morning?
Mm. So basically, I think patients who have done IVF knows about it. We generally start off with like egg retrievals early in the morning.
Yeah.
So once we are completed with like egg retrievals, what are the the scenes behind the bag? So we will be checking for fertilizations,
Mm-hmm.
and then we will move on to like early cleavage, developmental check like day 2, day 3 embryos.
Mm-hmm.
Then most importantly, day 3, day 4 as well. So that is when the critical time point is as well, and we will look at blastocysts. So then most important things will be, of course, looking at when the blastocysts, the embryos are actually ready for,
Mm-hmm.
for transfer, for freezing. So basically that's about like, the whole entire process that we are doing in the laboratory. Yeah.
Is that why all retrievals are usually in the mornings? Because you need that time to do it in the afternoon?
Yes. Yes, generally yes, because there is actually a very critical time, frame
Yeah.
that we have to work with the eggs. So in that case, it's best time to actually do the retrieval in the morning. So there is like ample time, for the embryologist to actually work on the cases
Yeah.
instead of like, rushing through a case
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
understand. So in terms of, because obviously you look at it throughout the day and everything, but at what point in time, like nighttime, obviously you've got to go home, right? And
Yes.
then you come in the next morning and everything. So at night, does anybody monitor it at night or it's really, left in the incubator to do its stuff?
Okay, so basically, generally, right, I would say that we once we finish with the lab work,
Yeah.
we can just go off
Okay.
most of the time.
Yeah.
But with now that with more laboratories utilizing like time lapse, we can
Yes.
actually monitor embryos at home as well.
Oh, so
So
there's like an app, is it?
there's like applications where we can, log in, we can, look at how your embryos are developing. But then one thing I usually would tell my, my lab staff, it's, don't keep looking at the embryos because, there is no end to seeing the embryos, and it will just affect, like, your personal life and
It's
things like that.
true. Like, I mean, they
Yeah.
say
So
don't bring work home, right? And then if you bring it home, it's also a bit hard and everything. Yeah.
yes, but of course there are times where we do, monitor carefully.
Mm-hmm.
So in cases like, let's say, cases for, like, patients who have done, failed fertilization, we
Yes.
might, take that, more time. We will spend the extra and make the extra effort to, look at how their development is going on.
Yeah.
Because once we have done the insemination, it still takes some time for the reaction to happen. So
Yes.
these are some things that, sometimes we are out of curiosity, we will, just log in and have a look. Yeah. But generally, more or less, we'll just leave, like, science to go with it.
To do
Let
it.
the, the embryos just develop. Yeah.
So let nature take its course, essentially.
Yes, that's right.
So I think
Yeah.
that's actually a very interesting point because I didn't know that you guys can like have an app and everything. But is there anything else that happens in the IVF lab that usually when you tell people they're always they're like a bit surprised, saying, "Oh, I didn't know that."
Mm. Yeah, I think like most people generally think that the lab environment itself,
Mm-hmm.
it's like maybe very noisy because of like the background sounds
Yeah.
and, all the actions and everything. But actually the whole IVF lab is actually a very, quiet and serene like environment.
Yeah.
So it's actually very good for meditation, I would say. So the humming background sound is actually very comforting. And
Uh,
most of the time, embryologists, our movement are actually very gentle. So imagine taking embryo dishes out from the incubators,
yeah.
all are done,
Fine.
gently.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So the only time when we are communicating, of course, is during double verifications where
Mm-hmm.
we will be, shouting out to a colleague, asking like, hey, can you help me check this embryo? Generally, the rest of the time it's quite quiet in that
Mm.
sense. Yeah.
You know,
So
one thing I realized that a lot of the embryologists that I do meet, they're all they have a calmness to them now that you mentioned. Like,
yes.
yeah, not only do they have a calmness to them, but they also like, I find that they're all very like very down to a very basic,
Mm,
like no
mm,
makeup, no nothing and everything. I
mm.
everybody seems to be very similar in that sense.
Okay, so no makeup is because, like
Uh-huh.
makeup sodas actually has like VOCs. So VOCs are actually volatile organic compounds which can be
Uh-huh.
harmful to embryos. So imagine your embryos, your eggs, your sperm come
Yeah.
from the inside of the body where,
Yes.
all these makeups and chemical compounds are not, around. So that's why where you see a bare-faced embryologist, yeah, this is the
I
reason.
don't think I've ever seen an embryologist with makeup on before. Now, now that
Yes.
so
Yeah.
there's a reason behind that.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Oh.
So, and also one of the thing that, patients usually might think like, oh, the embryologists are just working in the laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
They have like no other connection with like the doctors, the
Yeah.
nurses.
Yeah.
But actually there is a lot of layers of communications that we
Mm-hmm.
have like with them as well. So even for like Gen Prime, we do
Yes.
have a workstation within the operating theater as well. So we are there at the same time
Mm-hmm.
when you are doing the egg retrieval. So once the doctor taken out the eggs from the patient,
Yeah.
it's immediately in our hands. So
Oh,
we are literally like just beside you in that sense. Yeah.
so like an actual workstation in the operating room.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, that's
Yes.
very interesting. Yeah, because I
Mm.
don't think I've actually seen that before. So wow, because I always from what I've seen that they usually have like a window and they bring it to the window and then you go do it in the
Yes.
lab and it's like, oh, so that's very interesting. Nice. So we learned something new again. So okay, like let's go into a bit of details in terms of fertilization. I mean, some of it maybe ladies will understand, but I think we can just go through some basics. So
Yeah.
people usually assume that once the egg and sperm meets, right, fertilization has to happen. But
Mm.
obviously, sometimes it doesn't. So,
Yes.
why does it happen and why doesn't it happen at times?
Okay. So basically, right,
Mm.
when it should happen, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you think about it, it's not like a simple, meeting. where
Yeah.
the egg meets the sperm, and then chemical reaction happens.
Yeah.
So basically, what I would explain it, I would say it's like a multi-level, multi-step, like a checkpoint,
Mhm.
where they actually have to go through single checkpoints to be able to reach the final end.
Mm.
So when we are talking about like failed fertilization, why fertilization doesn't happen,
Yeah.
there are a few things we talk about. The first thing will be sperm. So, for the sperm, it has to be motile, it has to
Mm.
be active. Second, it must have the ability to actually penetrate through the cells outside the egg.
Mhm.
And then third, it has to have the ability to, to do this reaction. We call it the acrosome reaction, which means releasing enzyme to how do you say, to
Mm.
merge with the eggshell generally. So
Oh.
this is the work that the sperm has to do. So for the egg itself, the egg has to be mature.
Mm.
That's the first thing. And then once it is mature, then we have to see whether the internal, intrinsically, whether is it like cytoplasm, is it mature or not? And then if that happens, whether activation itself happens. So there are actually multi layers, of
Yeah.
things. It's not that simple per se. So, and of course, when we try to do whatever, the embryologist, whatever we try to do, we try to optimize, whatever we have, and we
Mhm.
try to monitor and to help it in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one way to explain to patients about fertilization, usually we will set the patient's expectation as well. We will,
Mm.
I will, like, especially for me, I will explain to the patient how all these eggs actually come from.
Yeah.
So if let's say you ovulate in a natural cycle, you're just ovulating one single egg.
Yeah.
But then when you come to an IVF cycle, why do you have that many eggs? So where do they come from? So we actually start from the basics. We explain to them that it's uncommon to have, some eggs not being fertilized
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that sense.
So you
Yeah.
say that you talk to the patient. How often?
Mm.
I mean, like, do you talk to them at the start, prior to,
Mm.
and everything? Oh, so you actually like,
Yeah.
when do they speak to you? Yeah.
So basically, once a patient, like a couple, they log their interest, they have done their consultation with the doctor,
Mhm.
and they are considering to do IVF. So
Yeah.
that is when doctors usually will refer to the IVF centers.
Yes.
And then we will set up an appointment where the embryologist will go through with them, like the basic science behind, IVF.
Mm.
So I realized that a lot of patients, they do not have, like, the knowledge and like the level of knowledge, of course, because
Yes.
this is actually, very detailed.
Correct.
But we will try to, let them understand. And
Mm.
usually they will go off with like a better, expectation, a certain level of expectation.
Yeah.
And they usually can, they can, go through the whole cycle,
Yeah.
with that knowledge, and then with that,
Yeah.
kind of like, expectation
Yeah, yeah.
generally.
No, I think that's really useful. I think that the fact that you get to speak to the embryologist beforehand, and I think the embryologist is the person who, I mean, the doctor can be the one that grows everything, but
Mm,
the embryologist is obviously the person that kind of goes through the details about fertilization, everything. And I think setting expectations is very important because of the
mm,
fact that I think a lot of people think that, they don't really understand the attrition rate unless you've been through it a number of times. But
yes.
yeah, it's really real in a sense. So yeah, that's interesting. So, okay. At any point in time where have you seen cases where, on paper, very good AMH level, sperm analysis really good and everything, but when fertilization happened, it still failed. Have you seen
Yeah.
cases like that?
Yes, of course. So unfortunately, this is one of the cases that we are actually not expecting,
Yes.
but it does happen. So
Mm.
there's a lot of question marks like along the way, like why it's happening. So generally, I would say that whatever we see out there, it's still very based on appearance and
Yes.
how they are, but usually this could have a deeper impact on, like, it could be a more intrinsic level, like it could be the sperm, there's some issues
Mhm.
with the sperm,
Yeah.
some intrinsic problem with the egg quality could be, not
Yeah.
not as good.
Yeah.
So these are the things, unfortunately, sometimes we can't see. It's like
Yeah.
invisible
Yes.
to the embryologist.
Mm.
But then I would like to, tell patients that, don't lose hope, because all these informations are actually valuable to us as well. So we do, we can gather, more information, and then it can help you, in future cycles. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you, as an embryologist, right, obviously when a fertilization can't happen and or when problems arise, are you as you said just now, are you able to kind of see and say, okay, I think I kind of know where it is. We'll change that in the next cycle.
Actually, from the start, from the I would say from the consultation, from the counseling. So most of the time we will ask for very detailed history of patients.
Yes.
So if let's say a patient has done multiple cycles, we actually go into the details. So there are some patients who are very impatient with us. They will be like, I have already spoken to the doctors. My doctor have all the information. But then we do explain to them, like from a laboratory point of view, what we are looking at.
Yeah.
So hopefully when we get all this, additional information, it can help us to at least, troubleshoot some parts of things that we can troubleshoot. So
Yes.
this is on the level of like from counseling stage. So
Yeah.
there are other things that will be, if let's say we come to an egg collection. So at the stage of egg collection, the number of eggs collected doesn't match the number of eggs that's scanned, then it will kind of like, we will be a bit more cautious about how the egg quality be. And then the next step will be the number of eggs collected doesn't match like the number of mature. So we can have a higher, proportion of immature eggs that we are looking at.
Yeah.
So it's also, a cautious point then.
Yeah.
So we actually break down into different checkpoints that we
Yes.
look at. Then of course the worst out of worst scenario would be something like the full front portion is normal looking. It's normal, but we end up with nothing for transfer or nothing for freezing.
Yeah.
So yeah, so unfortunately that happens as well. But I would like to say that, the laboratory would have, usually done their very best, in trying to see what we can do along the way.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, do you know, I mean, and you mentioned that, in the consultation process, when patients come to you, I mean, just for interest sake and just for everybody who's listening and everything, what should they bring to talk to the embryologist? Or, let's say I'm going to a new center and everything. What are things that would be good to have when they come?
If you have done like previous IVF cycles before,
Yes.
doesn't matter in where, which country,
Yeah.
you can just bring the reports that you have. So it would be good if we have like, embryo grading, we have like number of fertilized eggs, and that would give us a very good, information from them. Then like how many embryo transfers you have tried before, then your previous history before you have done IVF, have you been trying anything? That type of level of information. So it's always good if you have a physical report or pictures to show us so that we can have a better idea.
The pictures are good in that sense.
Yes, if let's say you have a embryo.
Yes.
So most people would call it like just a day 3 embryo, but from the picture itself, as an embryologist, we will have an idea what is the quality of the embryos.
Oh, that's so interesting. Oh, so like if we like, you can actually like go great kind of see what they're like in that sense. But
we can.
Yeah. So yeah, tell me. Sorry.
Oh yeah. So I would say it's actually quite helpful because in that sense, if let's say you have multiple like transfer.
Yes.
But it just failed.
Yes.
So when we look at the report, we look at the embryo grading, it could be, a poor quality embryo. So it makes sense in that sense.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and we can, properly talk to the patient, counsel the patient on why her previous cycle might fail. Yeah. So in this way, we can also give us like a we will, keep ourselves cautious about this case. Yeah.
So, and it's quite interesting. So basically, okay, and I asked this question because a lot of the bulk of patients, before they go to private, they come from public healthcare.
Yes.
All right. And I'm sure you have knowledge on, the reports from public healthcare and everything. But do public healthcares actually have pictures that they can give you, or have you seen them before?
Yes, I did. I do. I think some patients do have. So I think on the report, maybe no. But then,
Okay.
like for KK, I believe like when they do the embryo transfer, they do give patients
Um,
pictures.
okay.
Yeah.
So
So I
please
mean,
don't throw
those,
those pictures, people. Please keep them.
yeah, very precious pictures. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, all this information is actually very helpful, for
Yeah.
us as a lab to understand your previous cycles and how you have been, your cycles have been going through.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, talking about public healthcare as well, we understand that the grading in public healthcare is different from private, because private, I think they use Gartner system and everything, right? Do
Yes.
you have instances where people come in and they say, oh, at let's say public healthcare, they said I had a good embryo, and then you come and you have a look at it and you say, hey, actually the grading might be different. Do you have situations like this?
Okay. So I think the misconception about grading. So
Yes.
grading is actually very subjective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like let's say I look at an embryo, it could be a 4BB,
Mm.
but people might see as a AA, you know. Yeah.
Wow.
So actually, there's a lot of misconception on grading. I think a lot of emphasis have been put on grading, but actually, it doesn't really matter in that sense, because when we are looking at how embryo develops, we don't only look at the appearance as well. We look at like the developmental timing. So if let's say it's a day 5, day 6, day 7 embryo, it's a day 2, day 3 embryo, and we also look at how they are developing. So we are actually looking at what we call morphokinetics, the
Uh-huh.
way the embryo is developing, how they are dividing. So we use all this, to put it together to give a so-called, grading.
Yeah.
And also thing about grading, it is not as in terms of like what is grading. So
Yes.
basically, I would say if you're looking at a big, cohort of numbers, right?
Yeah.
Grading, if you have a better quality, higher grading, it naturally means like your embryo has a higher chance of implantation.
Yes.
But if you're looking at an individual level, the the grading doesn't really matter, because what we are looking at is it can be a average grade
Mm.
quality embryo, but it doesn't mean it has zero chance, you see. So
Mm.
in fact, like many, average quality embryos or even like non-top grade qualities have given so many healthy live birth out there.
Yeah.
So I would say grading doesn't really, it's not that
So
critical
it's
in
not
that sense.
indicative in that sense. So, because some people really get very hung up on grading, and
Yes.
I don't have an AA. That's the end of the the world.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I know it's good to hear that. Okay, at the end of the day, an embryo, as long as it looks good, it can still deliver. A good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so I mean, now let's talk about attrition, which is something that
Mhm.
unfortunately happens in this
Yes.
community and everything. But why does attrition happen in general across from retrieval from follicles to eggs and this and that?
Okay. So attrition is actually very normal. It's
Yeah.
actually a very normal process. So because there is this thing what we call a natural selection process.
Yeah.
So basically, if you think about it, like your whole entire cohort of eggs, not all of them are what we call normal. So
Yeah.
how does the body actually selects it? So there is actually a drop off, like at critical time points. So basically, eggs that are not eggs of embryos that are not functioning as well, they
Mm-hmm.
will stop growing and they get dropped off. So this is actually what it's actually very, very normal. So
Mm.
I know patients are often very worried about like um I have collected this amount of eggs, but
Mm.
I only have like
Yes.
maybe I have collected 15 eggs,
Yeah.
but I have only like one or two blastocysts
Yeah.
at the end. So they are very concerned
Yeah.
about that. But actually, that is very normal, I would say. So
Mm-mm.
basically, when we are looking at numbers, there is actually a percentage that we look at.
Mm-hmm.
So how to know whether you're within that percentage? I would say like maturity. So at the start, when we are looking at maybe about 70 to 80% of mature eggs.
Yeah.
So of course, if let's say you have 15 eggs, it cuts down to maybe 12. And
Mm.
then next fertilization, we usually say it's about 80%.
Yeah.
It goes down to 10 fertilized. And then from there to good day 3 cleaving embryos, generally about 50 to 60%.
Yeah.
So we are down to 6 again.
It's going fast.
Yes, it's going down. And then from a good day 3 embryo to blastocyst, generally another 50 to 60% again. So we are down to 4 or 3 embryos.
Yeah.
So in Singapore context, generally you get about 3 or 4 blastocysts out of 15 eggs. It's actually perfectly normal. It's within what we expected. And then now why 1 to 2? Because there's one other section, which is chromosome abnormalities.
Yeah.
So not all blastocysts are normal genetically. So this is one thing that in Singapore we don't screen out, but it's normal to expect only maybe 1 or 2 normal embryos out of that 3-4 blastocysts that we get.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is actually a natural process, a natural selection process. So patients don't have to be too worried. This is normal.
Yeah.
And yeah. Yes.
So the percentages that you mentioned just now, are they based on, is that the general average, or does it go down with age? Let's say, the older you get, then the percentages drop more?
Yes, of course, if let's say you're advanced in age, of course the percentage will drop even more. So I think the most significant one would actually be from the cleavage stage, which is day 3 up to day 5. So for patients who are advanced in age, from what we have monitored so far, most of the embryo actually stop developing at around day 3. Yeah. So because this is the egg quality are generally affected, so most of the eggs in the cohort could be, genetically abnormal at the first place. So resulting in like lesser blastocysts in that sense. Yeah.
So in a situation like that where a lady, from day 3, then the drop off is high, would you suggest to say, hey, then why not transfer on a day 3 instead of let it grow to blast? What's your thoughts on that?
So for me, I would still go for blastocyst culture because the reason being, if let's say the embryo is unable to grow in the lab, it also means that high chance it's unable to grow in your body as well.
Okay.
So in the lab, we are able to see it earlier.
Yeah.
And then one other way, sometimes to counsel specific patients, I would tell them that, if let's say you were transfer on a day 3, if let's say you do not become pregnant for that cycle, so we are unable to tell whether is it because the embryo stopped growing, or whether the embryo developed into a blastocyst, but it's unable to implant.
Yeah.
Because
so is
that
it an
will be
implantation issue, or is it an embryo issue?
Yes. So that is like 2 different, type of reason that we will know. Yeah. So yes.
Understand.
Yeah,
So it's better to have a clearer idea of where the problem lies instead of, risking it in that sense.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
So how much of what happens in the lab actually can be controlled? Some people say, oh, like if not such a good egg, can the lab make it better? Or, like maybe won't really fertilize, but can you do extra things to make it fertilize? How much can be controlled in a lab?
So yes and no, I would say it's a mix. So, but mostly I would say the egg and sperm embryos biology still plays a very big, very big thing. So basically, I would say like if let's say the quality of the egg and the sperm is the ceiling, it's at the ceiling. What the lab does is try to make it everything closer to that ceiling. Yes. So the reason why is because all eggs and sperm, they are inherent quality is fixed. So this is something that the laboratory we are unable to change, unfortunately. So what an embryology does and what the laboratory does, we are able to control the environment, provide them with the best environment for them to develop and grow. So this is the best that we can do it. But if let's say something is lacking in the egg or the sperm, there's no way we can, try to make it up for. So there are things that we say, like in terms of like when you're talking about fertilization. So if let's say fertilization doesn't happen, some people will say, okay, let's use activation.
Mm-hmm.
oocyte activation. So it's commonly, I mean, now people has more, information, they knows
Yes.
about this technique.
Yeah.
So, but they have to think about why do you use oocyte activation?
Yes.
Generally, it's because the egg is unable to activate.
Yeah.
So it's lacking of something,
Mm-hmm.
causing it unable to, to activate. So it's still the intrinsic part
Mm.
of the egg itself. So
Yes.
if, of course, if let's say the laboratory, we know more of the history of the patients,
Yeah.
we know of the patient's history, we know that she has, failed fertilization, she has
Mm.
low fertilization, then we can apply this. But if it's a
Understand.
patient's first cycle,
Yes.
generally we
It's
won't.
really going blind and see what happens.
Yes. So
Understand.
unfortunately, most patients, the first cycle is what I would say is like a trial and error.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yes. And from there, we gather more information and we try to help to improve,
Yeah.
the cycle. Yeah.
I totally agree. I always tell ladies going through IVF that please don't have so much expectation in the first round. Because obviously a lot of them going think I'm gonna succeed straight away.
Mhm.
So the more hope you have, the higher you fall as well. But because
Yeah.
the first round is really a trial round, not only in the lab, but also for the doctors, the amount of medications they give you, when they trigger you, all that kind of things is also really trial and error. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just now, I mean, you talk about the lab and everything, but in terms of sperm, you know,
Mm.
sperm selection, is it based on, so eggs, there's only so much we can control because there's only so
Mm.
few eggs. But with
Yep.
sperm, there's so much sperm under the microscope after you wash it. I mean, hopefully there's a lot of sperm.
Mm.
But how do you choose this sperm? Is it through the eye looking, okay, and is this based on experience or, how does that go?
Okay. So basically, most of the time, I would say routinely, it's really based on morphological as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we will process the sperm. So once when we are processing the sperm, generally we have removed like most of the dead sperm,
Mm-hmm.
slow swimmer. And
Mm-hmm.
from there, if let's say you're doing ICSI
Yes.
as for insemination,
So maybe
we
just
can
explain the difference between ICSI and IMSI so people kind of.
okay. So basically ICSI is just, insemination, so injecting one singular sperm into the egg. So
Yes.
when we talk about IMSI, we are actually looking at it like more, enlarged in
Yes.
a morphologically. So we are actually enlarging the sperm to have a clearer look at how, the whole entire head actually looks like.
Mm.
So the reason having IMSI is because, sperm, we get to choose sperm,
Yeah.
sperm, there are plenty of sperm. So one of the ideology is actually to select the best sperm.
Yes.
But the thing is still the same. We are still basing on, the morphological of the sperm.
Yep.
So sometimes there are defects within the sperm, which
Yep.
is something that we are unable, which is invisible to us as well. So basically what we can do is we try to select the best sperm of all,
Mm-hmm.
and then we try to inject that one sperm into that egg. Yeah.
Mm.
So there are also, by choosing this sperm, it doesn't mean that, it can activate the sperm.
Yep.
It doesn't mean that it can, penetrate the egg.
Yes.
So all these are the other small little things that we may not know, but
Mm.
actually can greatly affect how
Yeah.
fertilization is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then in terms of choosing the sperm, would you say that someone with more years of experience would be better at choosing the sperm, or really you have guidelines in place? Everybody will know that, okay, this is a guideline of what a good sperm looks like. It doesn't matter whether the embryologist has 1 year of experience or 15 years of experience, they're still going to be likely to be able to choose a good sperm.
Mm, we do follow a certain guideline. So
Mm-hmm.
actually, all the laboratories, we are following the WHO
Yeah.
manual. So there's actually a manual for semen analysis. So
Oh.
it has the guideline on what is abnormal
Uh-huh.
and what is normal. So this is actually one of the very basic things that a trainee embryologist actually have to learn.
Okay.
And most of the time they will go through like very intensive, semen analysis course. They will be dealing with a lot of sperm. So they are very, familiarized with what type of sperm is good, what type of
Yeah.
sperm is not good. So basically, if let's say an embryologist is able to do ICSI, by
Mm-hmm.
then they should it doesn't matter, I would say it doesn't matter in terms of like identifying which sperm is good or which sperm is not good. Both should be equally,
Yes.
they should know, because we have a standards, we have a
Yeah.
reference which we can follow on. Yeah.
Mm.
But
Okay.
then the difference between a senior embryologist
Yes.
and a trainee embryologist,
Yeah.
definitely I would say in terms of skills when you're doing ICSI,
Mm.
because I would say the sperm injection part is not that the choosing of the sperm.
Straightforward.
Yeah, it's not that difficult in terms of
Okay.
like choosing a sperm,
Yes.
but the injection of the sperm into the egg is actually the most critical. So if let's
Mm.
say we are working with eggs with very fragile eggs, that
Yes.
is when it plays a part. It matters in that sense.
And so is it that if you will not know if it's a fragile egg until you get it done?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So that's one of
That's
the
dangerous.
challenges. Yes. So that's one of the, of course, we do have, like, when we are going through a cycle, we do
Mhm.
pick up hints, here and there, that tell us that, oh, it could be a, fragile egg.
Yes.
But of course, the real act is still when you do
When
your
you
first, yeah, the very first insemination. That is when, we know, and then we have to, be very cautious for the rest of the
yeah. Honestly, I
journey.
would find it really quite nerve-wracking, because it's so precious and like it's not as if you have a lot that you can. I mean, if the person has a lot, then it's quite easy. But because if it's just basic, right, then
Mm.
it's quite nerve-wracking, I must say.
Mm. Yes, especially when we only, like, cases where we only have that one singular egg.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would
So,
be.
mm,
Okay,
yeah.
so are there things based on? So this is something obviously that we ask doctors because but are there supplements, diets, lifestyle? As an embryologist, you've seen in the last 15 years, you know people who have done things that can improve things. But what are certain things that you think patients can do?
Okay. So, supplements, lifestyle changes. I would
Mm-mm.
like to remind patients. I mean, it's a good time to educate people as well,
Yes.
that it can help with like a long term, like
Okay.
maybe improve your reproductive health, but that is like a long term kind of things that you have to do. So
Yes.
if let's say you're starting a single cycle,
Mm.
like next week, will it help?
No.
Honestly, it won't help much, because like the egg cycle, how the egg maturation cycle and the
Yeah.
sperm production cycle, they take at least 2 to 3 months, to develop. So by just being healthy for that one week,
Mm.
it doesn't really help in terms of a laboratory level. We
Yes.
don't see, much. But then of course, if a patient is keen to try, we will always still, ask them to go ahead, because you never know down the road. So it's never too late to start preparing now.
Yeah.
But then in terms of that single cycle that you're starting like within that month,
Mm.
yeah, it doesn't really help that much.
Understand. Yeah. I think that's quite straightforward. I mean, it's not a miracle drug, but I think sometimes the mindset is that if the eggs, okay, if we go with the concept that the eggs have already been sitting there since the day I was born, right? Will these things actually help it? Can it change from a biological point of view?
Mm, if let's say we do like start taking like healthy, in terms of
Mm,
healthy
mm, mm,
diet,
mm,
and
mm.
if we are able to maintain it for a period of time, I believe
Yes.
that it can. I mean, there has been paper showing that, sustaining this, you might be able to have like better egg quality and stuff.
Hmm.
But then, of course, there are some factors that will definitely you shouldn't try it. So
Yeah.
there are some things that we will ask patients to avoid in terms of lifestyle. So if let's say you are a heavy alcohol drinker,
Yeah.
so please stop. And then like heavy smokers as well. So I think there are also one of the things that I usually ask patients to do. I will tell them that I know it's very hard, but please don't be too stressed.
Mm.
So
Yeah. Is it very
yeah.
hard? It's easier said than done. That's what I've realized lately. Yeah.
Yes. So I did explain to them what stress level can do. So basically it can affect like your hormonal changes as well. So all
Mm.
this can actually affect like your egg, your sperm production, because your
Yeah.
hormone level, your metabolic changes, in your body can change all this thing as
Yeah.
well. And also need to, don't sleep too late.
Yeah.
Try to get like sufficient sleep. enough for your body to, to do, to regenerate basically.
Yeah.
So all this should be able to help them. Yeah. Yes. And
I
of
mean,
course,
it sounds straightforward, but it's just that sometimes we just
yes.
don't do it. We think we can do it, but we just don't do it. That's the thing.
Yeah. And also like physical activity. So some patients will be like, can I stop exercising? Should I stop exercising?
Yes.
So I'm like, explain to them, no, you should continue with your exercise. But if let's say you're preparing for a marathon,
Yeah.
you have to stop, so
Yeah.
no extremes in that sense to avoid all the extreme, activity. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's straightforward as we say, but yeah, sometimes we just need somebody to tell us. That's the thing.
Mm.
Yeah. So on the flip side, right? When things don't go well, as an embryologist, you're also the person that has to tell them the bad news,
Yes.
right? And I'm sure it's not easy in that sense, but like in Gen Prime, okay, how do you guys give updates to patients? And what's the usual? Is it through messages? Is it through phone calls? How does it usually work?
Okay, so basically we do send messages. I mean, we
Mhm.
actually give the patients the options to choose what is the form of communication they prefer. So if they do prefer like, calls, messages, or even emails. I mean, emails generally not everybody
Yes.
will want. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we actually do offer like different forms of communication platform for them to talk to. But so far, most of the patient actually find it easier to talk through messages. And even if we do calls with patient, generally we will still update them through messages because it's something that they can refer to, to keep as a record as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard to tell, patients when, things are not doing as well as expected. But
Yes.
then I think our role is also to bring across the message, communicate like, clearly, accurately. But of course, we have to be compassionate in that when we are speaking to them. So I think most of the time patients are okay. And I think most importantly is because we have done the counseling with the patients. So they have their own expectation. We have set an expectation with them.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, in terms of, do you get situations where the like obviously the lady obviously gets very upset and this and that and everything. How do you usually manage situations? Are you guys trained in any way, or really it just comes from personal compassion of knowing, over the years how to, assist patients through the difficult times?
I think it's really through experience. Definitely. So generally, I think there's an unspoken rule if let's say it's more challenging cases.
Yes.
Most of the time we will get like a more senior, kind of embryologist to
Yeah.
speak to the patients.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, this one thing that the junior can learn from.
Mm.
And of course, because like, it's always like the amount of experience when we went through, like the amount of cases that we go through, we know that not all is going to be successful.
Yes.
So this is one thing to take note. So we know how to balance like the way we speak to the patient.
Yeah.
So of course we will also carry the weight, but then we still have to, act professionally, speak
Yeah.
to the patient professionally. So
Yeah.
I think this is the important, thing. Yeah. And of course we will try to give patients some very positive, thing to keep them, positive as well.
Yeah.
Because I think that's very, very important
Yeah.
for patients. So as long as they are willing to, give another try, we can, always be there to help them again.
Yeah. Do they, let's say after, let's say something that doesn't go well and everything, are they allowed to come and meet you to understand better and this and that?
Yeah, sure. So like even if like a regular updates, so if let's say a day one updates, their question, they have questions on like the number of eggs that fertilize,
Yeah.
we always welcome them to actually give us a text or even call the center directly and ask for the embryologist. So at the end of the cycle, if they want us to, give them a debrief about their whole cycle, they want to view their videos of their time lapse, we welcome them as well. We will be okay, we are fine to go through with them, all this information.
Yeah.
Just to help them, to go through the difficult phase also. Yes.
In terms of time lapse and everything, is it a standard or is it, an added cost that if people want to use it?
I think it really depends on individual laboratories that are
Yeah.
using. So in Gem Prime is actually included,
Also, it's
service
a
that we,
standard.
yeah, it's a
Yes.
standard process. So we are doing like 100% cultures using the time lapse.
Mm,
So I mean time lapse is now more commonly
yes.
used already as compared to like maybe 5 years back.
Yeah.
So I think it should be a standard in that
Yeah.
way.
And it gives the the embryologist a better idea on how it's growing and everything as well, right?
Yes, and actually sometimes I think it's very helpful. It's very helpful in giving patients some closure,
Yes.
especially for patients who do not have, embryos that are growing. So
Mm-hmm.
we can actually, explain to them how their embryos is developing, giving them something to, to visually see and to go through. I think it gives them some closure in that sense as well. Yeah.
Yes, no, I agree. At least you know exactly, or where did it go wrong, and
Yes.
then with the suggestion of next time maybe this could change and this and that. I think
Yes.
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
One fun question that I always get asked is that do you think embryologists can actually tell the gender from an embryo just by looking at it?
Yes, this is a very commonly asked. So no, we can't.
Cannot, right?
Yeah, so we can't. Yeah, so like there's so many things that we can't see.
Yes,
So like whether a chromosome is normal or abnormal, we can't tell.
yes.
So of course not the gender
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's not something.
yeah,
Okay. So now obviously we come to PGT testing. It's not something that's really allowed here in Singapore, but around the world and in different areas, it's very popular. But what's your
yeah.
mindset on PGT testing from a, embryologist point of view?
Okay, so I think that PGT might help like
Mhm.
in a certain group of patients. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
that it will help in like the vast majority of people
Yes.
because PGT is actually the screening of chromosome abnormalities.
Yeah.
So it may be helpful in patients who are maybe of like more advanced age. It may be helpful for patients who have multiple miscarriages
Mm.
where I may have like plenty of like good blastocysts, but every time I transfer my embryos it just doesn't lead to a pregnancy, or
Yeah.
even like I have multiple miscarriages because of those. So for this group of patients, I believe that they need like another level of information, so PGT might work for them, for
Mm.
this group of patients per
Okay.
se. But is it necessary to extend PGT to all the whole entire cohort? I don't think so. If you
Mm.
are young, or maybe you have some unexplained infertility, I think all
Yes.
you have to do is to try a cycle of IVF, and you might get successful from there. So it's
Mm.
not necessary to actually screen
Yeah.
for all embryos. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
in terms of, let's say, screening, so obviously Gem Prime in Singapore doesn't offer it, but I understand that you guys obviously have clinics all around the world and everything, right? So usually where would you send them if people wanted PGT testing?
So we are actually open. It's really depending on like the patient's preference as well.
Okay.
So basically, if they are happy to go to our nearest clinic, which
Yes.
is Everling in KL, it's also
Hmm.
possible. So we have in regionally we have a few centers out
Yeah.
there. So
Yeah.
it really depends on what
What's
is
your
the
comfortable?
yeah, what's comfortable with the patients. Yeah.
Mm. How about with donor egg and donor sperm? Do you guys have donor egg and donor sperm at Gem Prime?
Yes, we can do donor egg and donor sperm as well. Yeah.
Okay. So.
So, but of course, in Singapore regulation,
Mhm.
patients have to fit certain criteria to use
Yes.
donor egg and sperm.
Yeah.
So we usually if patients inquire about donor egg and sperm, we will first direct them to have a
Mm.
consultation with our doctors first.
Yeah.
So this is to give us a better understanding on like why are they
Why?
using, yeah, why, and then from there then we can direct them to whether what type of donor they are using, what type of donor sperm, and then we will kickstart the process of selection and
Mm.
counseling and as
Yeah.
such. Yeah.
So basically, you can kind of guide them throughout. If they're interested, they can come to you
Yes.
and you guide them throughout the whole entire process from
Yes.
there and everything. Interesting. Okay, so we're almost at the end of the talk today, but okay, so um, what do you would like to say to someone who they have done well, embryos, follicle, there's lots of eggs and everything, but ultimately have their embryos have failed them at the end of the day. What is something that as an embryologist, the advice that you'd like to kind of give them?
Mm. I would say that they probably have to, like, usually in this kind of cases we will, discuss with the clinician, the doctors itself, to see what are the possible things that we can try out, because sometimes it's just not only because of like the laboratory, maybe there's something like in terms of stimulation that we can work on.
Yeah.
So we will go back to the clinician, we will discuss from there.
Mhm.
And then, of course, we need to also see which part of the embryo development did it like stop. So
Yes.
from there, we kind of like troubleshoot down
Mhm.
to where it is. And then, of course, we will discuss with the patient. So basically showing them the time lapse, explaining to them, and then letting them know what are the other options that they can have. Yeah. So, of course, it's not a very, good process. I mean,
Yeah.
like, it's not an easy process in that sense for the patient. It's a very hard process to go through. But we are there to support them as much as we can, and then give them the various options for them to consider.
Yeah.
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 Yes.
Fair enough. I think, all in all, it is not an easy journey. And but knowing that there's people on your side and knowing that everybody is there, not only the doctors, but you also have the embryologists and everything to look out for you and to help you, get to the best place possible. I think that's having the right team is important for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I
So
agree.
anyway, thank you so much, Lynn, for today's chat. I think it's a side of the journey that we usually don't really get to hear about. So it's nice to hear a different perspective, to know that, behind the lab, there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes. It's not as simple as just, fertilizing an egg, letting it grow and everything. There's so much more to it. And and the fact that you guys are also human beings and delivering good news, bad news, it affects you as well at the end of the day. So I think it's nice to see the human side behind the lab.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
So
you. Thank you
anyway,
for inviting me as well.
no problem. I mean, if there's any other questions, people, please send them through and everything, even after the live has gone up, as a recorded video. But let us know, and we can always send questions to Lynn and then kind of go from there. All right. So thank you so much, Lynn, for your time and your effort. And then have a good, I didn't realize it's Labor Day tomorrow until this morning that I realized tomorrow is a public holiday, and everybody's messaging saying that, oh, I cannot watch it because I'm outside. But don't worry, this video will go up live. Okay, we'll edit it and then it will go up as a recorded video and you can come back and watch it. Okay, so thank you everybody for your time and your effort, and we'll speak soon on the next live. Thank you, Lynn. Have a good day off tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Say bye.